Ceres was born into the Zenith Empire, a civilization whose grandeur was both celebrated and feared throughout known space. Yet beneath that polished veneer of metallic spires and swirling constellations lay a cold creed of unyielding perfection. From the moment she came into being, Ceres was different, for her eyes could not see. Among her kin, any imperfection was considered a flaw, an impurity, something to be eradicated or banished. While Zenith scholars devoured cosmic secrets and perfected the science of gene engineering, none of their storied brilliance could save Ceres from the stigma of her blindness. She spent her childhood within the thinly veiled scorn of her people, guided by the hushed steps of caretaker drones that led her from her chamber to the designated learning halls each day. And yet even the drones, with their humming mechanical hearts, mirrored the pervasive aloofness of Zenith society. They offered no companionship, only function, and that function had been coldly commanded by the highest overseers of her station. In every corridor, every perfectly lit hall, she felt eyes upon her, some filled with pity, others with disdain, but none with compassion. Within the sterile domes of the Zenith capital, Sovalin, adorned with shimmering crystal walkways and walls that whispered with the hum of embedded energy fields, Ceres was taught that her life was a conundrum, a puzzle. She was to prove her worth despite her failing eyes, and if she could not, her future within the Zenith was worthless. As she grew, she tried to compensate for her blindness through heightened hearing and sensitivity. Indeed, her acute awareness of echo and vibration became her way of interpreting the environment. But no matter how adept she became at navigating the labyrinth of crystalline corridors, she would always be known as the imperfect one. In Zenith culture, all were expected to stand tall in the endless pursuit of progress, unwavering in the face of cosmic challenges. Their empire spanned hundreds of star systems, each colonized and transformed according to meticulously calculated designs. They prided themselves on forging alliances only when beneficial, on mastering subjugation when faced with resistance, and on molding every facet of existence to fit their standard of excellence. Ceres, a single individual, was an error in a machine of unstoppable momentum. Her parents, though high-ranking in the social order, were powerless to shield her from the inevitable. They too, shaped by the Empire's rigid philosophies, found themselves torn between love for their offspring and allegiance to the Zenith principle of perfection. In time, they succumbed to the silent pressure, capitulating to the unspoken law that demanded no blemish remain within the Empire. Thus, an order was issued in the hush of midnight. Ceres was to be exiled. It was not a public spectacle, for the Zenith did not believe in crude displays. Instead, it was a clinical affair, an official decree passed down by the exalted council of the Star Chambers. Ceres was awakened in her austere chamber by two faceless Zenith guardians, their forms clad in dark, shimmering suits that glowed faintly with lines of silver. With somber efficiency, they escorted her to a waiting transport craft. She understood the hush, the humiliation, for to speak too loudly of an imperfection was to blemish the Empire's facade. The Zenith would not have that. The transport, a sleek arrowhead of silver, slipped seamlessly from Sovalin's main hangar bay into the blackness of space. For the first time in her life, Ceres felt the hum of warp engines beneath her feet in the knowledge that it would soon be the last time she would travel under Zenith protection. She drifted in her seat, hands clenched around the harness, trying to summon the cold acceptance that every Zenith was supposed to master. But her heart, ever yearning, beat with terror and sorrow. She was left on a remote world, a place no Zenith would bother to claim, a dusty outpost known only as Helios Minor, orbiting a lonely star on the outskirts of the human sphere of influence. It was a desert planet of orange dunes and scorching winds, known to be home to hardy pioneers who eked out a living mining for rare minerals buried deep beneath the surface. The Zenith Guardians uttered no words, simply depositing her within a ramshackle outpost settlement before departing, leaving her only the faint roar of their craft's departure. In the dryness of the desert wind, Ceres felt truly alone. She wore simple Zenith robes of pristine white, now quickly gathering sandy grit, and she stood in stunned silence. No caretaker drones, no grand crystalline halls, no parental presence. All was harsh, untempered reality. She was 20 standard cycles of age, cast out into the unknown, deemed unworthy of the illustrious Zenith lineage. With one last breath, she steeled herself, determined that if her people had left her to survive alone, she would live for a reason she chose. She wouldn't let the desert bury her spirit. Thus did Ceres step into the swirling dust of Helios Minor. Guided by a staff fashioned from the scrap she found near the outpost's boundary fence, feeling every vibration with her heightened senses. She did not know that this deserted corner of the galaxy would bring her face to face with the chaotic, vibrant nature of humanity, nor that a fateful encounter would change both her destiny and the fate of her entire people. Winds shrieked across the dusty outpost on Helios Minor, carrying the scorched smell of iron-laden sand. Ceres had never encountered such a climate, a place where the sun raged like a fiery tyrant by day and the nights held the brittle cold of a desert unshielded by atmospheric comforts. The settlement she stumbled upon was small, a collection of prefabricated huts and metallic structures, each pocked by the abrasive storms that perpetually scoured the land. At first, the human settlers regarded her with suspicion. They knew little of the Zenith, only that they were a prideful, technologically advanced people who rarely ventured into these frontier worlds. The sight of a young Zenith woman, clad in once pristine white robes, wandering half-blind across the dunes was enough to stir rumors. Though she possessed no physical weapon, her presence alone unsettled many. Humans had learned caution over centuries of contact with other races, especially those whose moral codes, or lack thereof, could prove dangerous. Ceres, for her part, remained stoic, focusing on the swirl of each grain of sand underfoot. The dryness stung her throat, and thirst became an unrelenting companion. She felt more helpless than ever in this unknown environment, yet she refused to collapse. Determination pulsed in her veins like a second heartbeat, spurring her onward until she heard the faint clank of metal and hiss of steam from the direction of a rickety workshop at the edge of the colony. Inside, she found Ethan, a lean, unkempt human man with hair the color of copper filaments, streaked with a lifetime of dust. His eyes, though shadowed by fatigue, spoke of curiosity and inherent kindness. He had been in the midst of calibrating a generator module, cursing softly at corroded parts. When she appeared at the threshold, her presence startled him enough to drop his wrench. She sensed him before he spoke, picking up on the subtle shift in air currents as he stepped closer. "Easy there," he said, his tone gentle. "You look half dead. Do you understand me? Need help?" It was the first time she had heard a human voice up close, tinged with a warmth rarely present in Zenith speech. The language was a standard trade tongue used across many worlds. Ceres comprehended its structure, but the emotion underlying it, compassion, left her breathless. With the dryness in her throat, she could only nod, managing a raspy yes. Ethan offered her water, guiding her to a seat amidst the clutter of mechanical parts. The liquid tasted almost shockingly pure after the dryness of her journey. In that moment, as her lips pressed to the metal rim of the cup, she felt an inexplicable spark of hope. He watched her silently, not with disgust or curiosity, but with simple concern. As she recovered, her senses roamed the workshop. The air hummed with the faint buzz of solar converters, the tang of ion-charged batteries, and a metallic undercurrent of broken machinery. Tools clanged on steel tables, and the floor vibrated under rotating fans that tried in vain to chase away the desert heat. She mapped the space in her mind, stacks of crates, half-assembled drones, wiring strewn about. "Name's Ethan," he said after a long pause. "I'm an engineer of sorts. Not from here originally, but I suppose no one really is." He attempted a smile, though he realized she could not see it. "This place ain't much to look at, or so they tell me, but we make do." Ceres bowed her head politely. I am called Ceres. I was exiled. I need refuge." He studied her eyes, noticing the unusual lack of focus, the slight haze that marked her blindness. The gravity of her words, exile, settled in the dust of the workshop. Exile was a heavy burden, especially in an alien realm. He didn't push for details. Instead, he extended a hand, something so small, and yet so profoundly un-Zenith, so purely human. "Then you'll find it here," he said quietly. "As best as I can offer." They spoke further into the night, huddled near a rickety heater that spat out more sparks than warmth. Saris told him of her people's philosophy of perfection, how her blindness was considered a failing, how she was unworthy to remain among them. She spoke in halting phrases, uncertain of her own voice, but Ethan listened patiently, offering the occasional question or nod of understanding. By the time the desert chill fully enveloped the outpost, Saris felt a small bond forming with this human. She sensed his empathy, though it was tinged with an undercurrent of sorrow she could not quite place. When he finally showed her to a spare corner in his workshop, little more than a cot and a battered trunk, she felt grateful beyond words. For the first time in her life, she was shown kindness free of judgment. And so, amid the hiss and clank of half-repaired devices and the howling wind outside, Saris fell into a restless sleep. Her last thought before drifting off was of how different Ethan's voice was from the Zenith's cold precision. In its warmth, she detected the promise of something entirely new, a future shaped not by the fear of imperfection, but by acceptance of it. She clung to that hope like a lifeline, uncertain what tomorrow would bring, yet determined to face it with all the courage she could muster. Morning came with the relentless glare of Helios Minor's sun, a fiery orb that seemed to devour the sky. The temperature soared swiftly, driving the colony's inhabitants to scuttle into shaded areas or behind the thick walls of their prefab dwellings. Saris, however, was awake before the full force of daylight set in, awakened by the gentle hum of Ethan's tinkering in the workshop. Over a meager breakfast, synthesized protein bars and water from a ration pack, they found a curious companionship. Saris listened as Ethan explained the daily rhythms of the colony. Miners labored in subterranean shafts, extracting rare metals crucial to building starship components. Traders arrived occasionally, bringing supplies in exchange for the colony's output. Beyond that, life was slow, difficult, and often lonely. He pointed out different structures around them, describing everything from the cluttered junkyard behind the workshop to the communal storage depot. Though Saris could not see, she carefully mapped each location in her mind, relying on the shifts in Ethan's voice to gauge distances. She marveled at how freely he shared information, no oblique hints of condemnation, no scornful edge like the Zenith. His words came across as genuine, meant to help her navigate. "There's not a lot of folks who'll open their doors to a stranger," Ethan said, leaning back against a metal crate. "But I figure if you can't show a bit of goodwill when someone's down, then what's the point of living out here?" Saris bowed her head in gratitude. "You have my deepest thanks. I know that my presence may cause issues for you, especially if my people ever return. The Zenith do not look kindly on interference with their judgments." Ethan shrugged. "Zenith, Terran Federation, or some other power? Out here, you learn to stand up for your own, or you don't stand at all. Besides, you've done nothing wrong. I'm not interfering, just being decent." A small, tentative smile curved Saris's lips. That is a perspective I have never heard before. The day wore on, and while Ethan continued his work on various mechanical projects, Saris made an effort to help. She discovered that her sensitive hearing and touch allowed her to detect subtle flaws in machinery. Where Ethan struggled to pinpoint a misalignment, Saris could run her fingers across surfaces, feeling for the slightest vibration or gap. She located a crack in a pressure valve that had eluded Ethan for weeks. He was astonished by her ability, praising her natural perception as a gift rather than a flaw. "It's like you've got a built-in sensor array," he joked, wiping sweat from his brow. "We could use that on half the stuff around here. With the dust storms battering everything, it's a miracle we keep anything running at all." She blushed and used to praise. "I only wish it came with the ability to see," she confessed in a hushed tone, recalling the Zenith's failed therapies that had tried to fix her blindness. Ethan paused, gaze shifting toward a corner where he stored research notes. "Saris," he said carefully, "I've been working on something, an experimental device. It's a neural interface designed for ocular implants. I never got it fully operational, but maybe it could help you, if you'd want to try." Her heart lurched. The Zenith had tried so many times to fix her blindness. She had grown to accept darkness, but a spark of hope ignited at the prospect of even fleeting sight. Yet she felt a kernel of fear. Could she adapt to a new sense? She turned her face in his direction. I'm willing to try." but I cannot promise success. Ethan offered a reassuring nod. One day at a time, Saris. We'll scan your neural patterns, see if the interface can connect. If it does, we'll calibrate it until maybe you can perceive basic shapes. It was uncertain, but for Saris, it meant a chance at truly belonging somewhere. If she could see, even partially, perhaps she could break free from her exile stigma. It felt like the first step toward a new life, different from Zenith's cold demands. They spent the rest of the day tidying the workshop in preparation for the experiments. Under Saris's careful detection, they sorted wires and circuit boards. Occasionally, other colonists popped in, dust-covered miners needing equipment repairs. They eyed Saris warily, but tension softened when they saw her quietly assisting. As dusk fell, the desert cooled, painting the horizon in lavender and gold. Outside the workshop, Saris tilted her head skyward, feeling the drop in temperature on her skin. She imagined what it might be like to see the sky's colors, to witness alien suns shining across dunes. The longing was bittersweet. Ethan, stepping beside her, said quietly, "You should see the stars tonight. They'll be bright." She felt a gentle pang in her chest. "Someday," she whispered, "I hope I will." They stood side by side, an unlikely pair bound by empathy and shared determination. Neither suspected that on the horizon of this unforgiving world, forces were stirring that would test them more than they could imagine. Tomorrow, they would begin the first steps to restore her sight, an endeavor of fragile hope in a galaxy that had so far shown her only rejection. True to his word, Ethan began preliminary tests the following morning. He retrieved a small device from his research trunk, an oblong, silvery contraption no larger than a handheld scanner, dotted with luminous interface ports. "It's a neural wave calibrator," he explained, guiding Saris's hand to its smooth surface so she could feel the shape. "I designed it a while back for ocular prosthetics. The idea is it can map your brain's visual cortex and see if there's a way to connect an artificial lens system." Saris traced her fingers over the calibrator's edges, feeling its faint internal hum. Her heart pounded with anticipation and dread. "Is it safe?" she asked softly, remembering painful therapies of her youth. "As safe as I can make it," Ethan assured, helping her attach small sensors to her temples, the cold adhesive sending a slight shiver through her. "We'll go slow. If there's pain, we stop. Promise." She inhaled as the calibrator's pulses tickled her scalp, like tiny sparks dancing beneath her skin. Her mind reeled with swirling, colorless shapes, an odd pressure in a place she had never felt. It wasn't sight, but it was something. Not darkness. Tears sprang to her eyes, not from pain, but from raw emotion. For a moment, she sensed the possibility of another dimension. Ethan's voice was a whisper. "Your neural pathways are responding. The visual cortex isn't dormant. It's trying to interpret. We just need to feed it coherent signals." A wave of dizziness swept over her, followed by warmth blooming from temple to forehead. Phantom images of light flickered in her consciousness, then vanished. She trembled, tears clinging to her lashes. She had glimpsed a spark of what could be. After a minute, Ethan deactivated the machine, gently removing the sensors. "That's enough for today," he said, seeing her trembling. "But it's promising, Saris. There's definitely a connection." She bowed her head, tears still on her cheeks. "I felt something, more than darkness." Ethan offered a soft smile. "A first step. Tomorrow, we calibrate again, bit by bit." They repeated the sessions in the following days, each introducing fleeting glimmers of perception. She experienced flashes of light and shadow, swirling luminescence that her mind struggled to interpret. Still, each breakthrough fueled her hope. At times, Ethan would rest a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing great," he'd say, feeding instructions into his terminal. "We just need the right alignment." Life in the colony continued. Saris ventured carefully, staff in hand, exploring the settlement's outskirts. She listened to miners' drills and clanking supply carts. She tasted the dusty wind, letting it build her mental map. She even visited the communal mess hall, where wary glances slowly shifted to acceptance. Ethan's workshop became her safe haven, a place of progress and support. She helped him with mechanical projects, detecting microfractures in critical systems. More than once, her uncanny ability saved Ethan hours of work. The colonists noticed, nodding in her direction, greeting her with cautious warmth. A small victory. By the fifth calibration, she detected crude shapes in her mind's eye. A square outline. A flicker of movement when Ethan passed. It wasn't normal sight, more like a contrast awareness, but it filled her with awe. After each triumph, she and Ethan shared excited whispers, recording every detail. But in the workshop corner, a silent communications console blinked, tuned to general frequencies. It picked up fragments of transmissions from passing ships, sometimes random chatter, sometimes encrypted signals. Unbeknownst to them, one such signal bore the Zenith's hallmark, traveling like a ghost across star systems in search of something, or someone, they had once cast away. Word of an unidentified vessel entering Helios Minor's orbit spread through the colony like wildfire. The settlers, already weary from labor and limited resources, braced themselves. Unscheduled visitors were rarely a cause for celebration in such remote outposts. Pirates, rogue traders, or worse, an oppressive force, could be approaching. Saris sensed the tension before any official announcement. She heard hushed conversations and felt anxious vibrations in the air. Even Ethan, usually calm, paced around the workshop, scanning equipment that showed a sleek craft in orbit, unresponsive to hails. One evening, as they sat in the workshop, Ethan's data pad beeped with a colony-wide alert. He read it aloud to Saris. Attention, all colonists. An unidentified ship has entered orbit. No response to hails. Proceed with caution. Report suspicious activity. Saris's throat tightened. It could be anyone, she whispered. But would a Zenith ship remain unidentified? Ethan rubbed his temples. Who knows? Zenith can mask signals if they want. The question is, if it's them, why come back? They exiled you. Why return? She trembled, recalling the guardians who had left her in the desert. To finish what they started, or to ensure I haven't contaminated others. Zenith is meticulous about illusions. Ethan frowned. We need a plan. If it's them, we can't let them just take you. This is your home now. You've done nothing wrong. She found a small smile at his protective tone. I appreciate that, she said, though dread gnawed at her. The Zenith's power was immense. She remembered how powerless she felt under their authority. That night, sleep was elusive. The workshop's usual hum felt fraught with tension. Outside, wind lashed sand against metal walls. The next day brought no relief. The mysterious craft stayed overhead, silent to all attempts at contact. Some colonists armed themselves. Others boarded up windows. Captain Rourke, the settlement's leader, directed defensive measures with a resigned air. Resources were scarce, but they would resist if needed. Despite the turmoil, Ethan pressed on with Saris's calibrations. We might need a miracle, he said. If you can see, even partially, it gives us an edge we didn't have. Desperation fueled them. On the third session that day, Saris gasped. She saw Ethan's outline, ghostly but undeniably humanoid. She burst into tears, overwhelmed by joy at seeing another being for the first time. I see you, she stammered. Arms, legs ahead. He grinned broadly, though she only perceived a flicker of movement. That's incredible. Let's not overdo it, but that's huge progress. Her head throbbed with effort, but the knowledge of having glimpsed another person for the first time buoyed her spirit. She clung to the hope that perhaps this small victory would help them in the days ahead. Toward dusk, an uneasy hush fell over the colony. The unidentified craft descended near the settlement perimeter, kicking up dust. Colonists with improvised weapons formed a ragged line behind barricades. Captain Rourke and her guards approached cautiously. Saris and Ethan watched from the workshop, her staff tapping anxiously. The craft's ramp lowered, revealing 3 tall figures. Their bearing was unmistakable. Zenith. A hush settled. The Zenith envoy stepped forward, robed in shimmering silver, voice carrying easily. We come for the one called Saris, the leader proclaimed, scanning the crowd. Her exile was not to be disturbed by lesser species. Return her, or face consequences. Captain Rourke squared her shoulders. Saris is under our protection. She's broken no laws here. You exiled her, but she found refuge. The Zenith leader tilted their head in disapproval. Defy us, and your entire settlement suffers for harboring a defective Zenith. Ethan clenched his fists. Saris felt fury and fear swirl within. How dare they call her defective? They had abandoned her. Now they threatened to return and erase her? Before Rourke could respond, A zenith raised a crystalline device, energy building ominously. It was a threat, but a sudden gust of wind whipped sand into a frenzy, obscuring everyone's vision. When it cleared, the zenith trio still stood, unimpressed. At dawn, surrender Ceres, or we take her by force, their leader warned, turning back toward the craft. The ship's ramp sealed shut, engines humming quietly. They did not depart, simply waited like a predator. Ethan turned to Ceres. We're not letting them take you. She nodded, her heart pounding. I'd rather die here among humans who accepted me than go back to Zenith's cold perfection. Some colonists murmured agreement. They respected Ceres and would stand by her. Captain Rourke convened a meeting in the communal hall. Arguments flew. Surrender Ceres to save the colony, or fight a likely unwinnable battle. Ceres refused to flee. I won't abandon the people who gave me kindness, she insisted, voice shaking but determined. Ethan proposed a plan to disrupt Zenith systems. If we can scramble their tech, we might stand a chance, he said. Ceres recalled her knowledge of Zenith technology. Their systems rely on a resonant energy matrix. If I can interface with it, I can create a feedback loop to disable their weapons. A risky move, but it might buy time. They agreed. They would not surrender Ceres. The colony prepared, building barricades, checking weapons. If the Zenith wanted to claim her by force, they'd face human resolve and the fierce determination of a woman cast aside once before, unwilling to let it happen again. Morning arrived in a blaze of white heat, scorching the sand. The Zenith craft loomed outside the settlement. Every colonist with a weapon took position behind improvised defenses. Captain Rourke stood at the forefront, unyielding. Ceres and Ethan stood near the colony's center, hearts pounding. Despite beads of sweat, a calm determination filled Ceres. She sensed an energy pulse from the Zenith ship, a resonant chord she recognized from her childhood. They're powering a subjugation field, she warned Ethan. It'll disable the colony's electronics. Ethan cursed. We'll be defenseless, and life support will fail in this heat. Captain Rourke overheard. We can't match that tech. Suggestions? Ceres steadied herself. I can disrupt it if I get close enough to interface with the ship's resonance. I'll need help. Ethan grabbed a toolkit. We'll cover you. Let's go. A handful of colonists offered cover. The Zenith, seeing movement, fired energy blasts. White-hot beams scorched the sand, clouds of dust rising. Ceres felt each discharge, picking her path using heightened senses. While Rourke and others returned fire with improvised weapons, it was enough to split the Zenith's attention. Ceres led Ethan around the skirmish, her staff raised to sense danger. They dashed across open desert, reaching the base of the Zenith craft. A sleek giant, it shimmered with crystalline panels reminiscent of her homeworld. She placed a hand on the hull, feeling the hum of energy within. Maintenance port, she murmured, tracing her fingers to find a hidden seam. After tense moments, she found it. A panel slid open with a hiss. Ethan connected a portable interface. Cover us, he told the colonists as they returned fire at the Zenith guards closing in. He typed frantically into a handheld terminal. Ceres sensed the guards nearing, weapons charging. She lifted her staff, bracing for combat she was ill-equipped for. Then Captain Rourke arrived with reinforcements, forcing the guards to engage elsewhere. Ethan cursed. Encryption's insane. Can't override the field from here. Need direct access to the resonance core. Ceres nodded. Center of the ship. Let's go inside. In a whirlwind of chaos, they forced the ramp open, slipping into the craft's corridors. The sudden cool interior contrasted with the desert's blast furnace heat. Alarms blared. Zenith soldiers materialized, firing at the intruders. Colonel Rourke's team provided cover, though outmatched technologically. Still, each brief firefight allowed Ceres and Ethan to push deeper. They reached the core chamber, a towering cylinder of crystalline filaments that throbbed with power. This was the subjugation field's source. Ethan hurried to a console, hooking his interface. Ceres, tune into the resonance. Guide me. She placed both hands on the console, feeling the energy roar like a waterfall. Memories of Zenith technology flooded her, the precise calibrations for perfect harmony. She summoned every ounce of focus, mentally weaving a discordant note into the core's frequency. Sparks erupted, filaments flickered. Ethan seized the chance, inputting override commands. A surge of feedback rippled through the ship, flinging everyone off their feet. Outside, the colony's systems rebooted, power returning, turrets whirring back online. Saris crashed to the floor, ears ringing. In the haze, she sensed a tall figure approach. The Zenith leader, weapon in hand, face twisted with fury. "Traitor!" They spat, leveling a blast toward her. Ethan lunged to intercept, deflecting the shot. A volley of fire from the colonists cut the leader down. Silence fell, save for the crackle of damaged systems. Saris stood unsteadily, Ethan helping her. Their sabotage had succeeded. The subjugation field was neutralized. The colony, battered but intact, was free. They gazed at each other amid sparking consoles. She had used her flaw, her resonance sensitivity, to dismantle Zenith's illusions of invincibility. Though the cost was high, she had found a home in humanity's imperfection. Ethan squeezed her hand. "We won," he murmured, relief flooding his voice. Yet she knew the Zenith would not easily forget. But in this moment, she embraced the triumph. For the first time, she belonged somewhere. The colony had stood by her, and together, they had faced the so-called perfect empire. The day after the battle felt surreal. The Zenith craft remained on the outskirts, its once pristine hull scarred by combat. Captain Rourke declared it confiscated property. The colonists guarded it, expecting more Zenith retaliation, but none came. Repairs consumed the settlement. Medical outposts overflowed with wounded. Despite the chaos, unity thrived. They had confronted a superior foe and prevailed. For Saris, each step across the settlement was loaded with gratitude. People spoke her name with respect, no longer pity. She had proven her worth, not by Zenith standards, but by her own merit. Ethan worked tirelessly, assisting repairs, but still found time to refine Saris's neural interface. Their victory only sharpened their resolve to fully restore her sight. Indeed, each successful calibration rewarded her with clearer perception. At one point, she even glimpsed Ethan's face, a vague but unmistakable human silhouette. "It's you," she whispered, tears welling. "I see your shape, your hair, your eyes." Ethan beamed. "That's amazing, Saris. Let's keep refining it." In the midst of reconstruction, a hush swept the colony when another Zenith craft appeared in orbit. Everyone braced for another confrontation, but two soldiers arrived peacefully, requesting the body of their fallen leader and, if possible, their ship. Captain Rourke confronted them, arms crossed. "You threaten my settlement, lose, then politely ask for your ship? Why should we grant it?" One soldier bowed his head. "We followed orders. We did not expect such resistance. Now that our leader is gone, we only wish to honor our traditions, retrieve his remains, and leave. We mean no harm." A tense debate followed. Sarah stepped forward, staff clicking on the ground. "You cast me out for my blindness. Now you see that your perfection is not absolute. Take your leader, but vow to leave this settlement in peace." The Zenith soldier nodded gravely. "We swear. Though you are exiled, your story will echo. Perhaps one day, Zenith will comprehend the power in imperfection." Under watchful eyes, the Zenith retrieved their leader's remains and patched their ship enough to depart. Before boarding, one soldier turned to Saris. "You are no longer a mere defect. Your name will be remembered." With that, they left. The colonists exhaled relief. They had not surrendered Saris, nor were they destroyed. An uneasy peace returned. Captain Rourke clapped Saris on the shoulder. "They're gone for now." Saris smiled, a tear escaping. "I don't care if they call me defective. This is my home." Ethan squeezed her hand. "Yeah, you belong here." In the setting sun, the colony's lights flickered back to life, unveiling a new sense of hope. Saris felt a purpose she had never known. Proof that imperfection could be a wellspring of innovation, compassion, and unity. Time passed in relative calm. Helios Minor thrived after its victory. Repairs evolved into expansions, with sturdier habitats and better medical bays. Spurred by the story of repelling Zenith aggression, more traders visited, bringing supplies and new settlers. Saris threw herself into the work, determined to repay kindness. Her heightened senses made her indispensable, detecting machinery flaws faster than anyone. Miners brought her broken drills, scanning equipment, and she pinpointed mechanical issues in minutes. Her name grew in esteem. Once viewed with suspicion, she became a respected figure. But her primary focus remained on the neural device. Daily calibrations continued with Ethan. Each success brought her closer to normal sight, though glitches persisted. She could perceive outlines of buildings, silhouettes of passers-by, even the shifting colors of a Helios Minor sunset. The first time she discerned the faint gold-red hue of Ethan's hair, her heart soared. "It's you," she whispered, tears brimming, as she traced his hazy features. She felt like a child discovering the world for the first time. Each breakthrough was a miracle. Ethan marveled at her progress. "Your feedback is perfecting this tech. I never dreamed we'd get so far so quickly." Between workshops and calibrations, they shared quiet evenings, talking of Earth, Zenith spires, and all they had endured. Their bond deepened, two souls finding solace in each other. Sometimes, she caught her reflection in polished metal, no longer blackness, but the silhouette of her own face. Such moments reminded her how far she'd come. One evening, Ethan led her to a rocky outcropping overlooking the mining pits. Sparks from welding torches glimmered below, mirrored by the desert twilight's deep red glow. A warm breeze ruffled her hair. He cleared his throat, uncharacteristically hesitant. "There's something I've been meaning to say," he began softly. "Since you arrived, my life changed. I was drifting, tinkering on old projects, without purpose." She turned her vision, still fuzzy but improving, toward him. "You gave me more than sight," she murmured. "You gave me hope when I had none." He inhaled deeply. "You've given me hope, too. I think I'm falling in love with you. Maybe I already have." Her heart fluttered. In Zenith terms, love was a trivial concept overshadowed by utility. But here, the pure acceptance in Ethan's words overwhelmed her. She slid her hand over his. "I feel the same. I never believed anyone could care for me this way." He leaned in, and they shared a tender kiss, the desert wind carrying the promise of new beginnings. When they parted, his palm lingered against her cheek. "So what now?" She smiled. "We keep moving forward, together, building a future right here. This colony is my home, and I want to help it grow." He nodded, eyes shining. "I like that plan." Over the next weeks, they founded workshops for colonists interested in new technology, sharing neural interface advancements that could aid others. Meanwhile, the colony's infrastructure blossomed. Additional solar panels, water filtration upgrades, and improved trade routes turned Helios Minor into more than a mining outpost. It became a thriving community. All the while, rumors trickled in that the Zenith Empire might not be done with them. Yet no direct threat emerged. Saris and Ethan focused on their life, forging love in a place once considered barren. Sometimes, she would stand beneath the starry sky, faint lights twinkling in her augmented vision, and marvel at how this exile had led her to a place of belonging. Ethan often joined her, arm wrapped around her waist. She wondered aloud if the Zenith ever truly grasped how small they were under the endless cosmos. He would kiss her temple, reminding her that, small or not, they had carved out their meaning here, in the desert winds and starlight of Helios Minor. Months passed peacefully. Helios Minor's reputation as a resilient colony spread. More settlers arrived, fortifying the place once dubbed a barren outpost. Saris and Ethan became pillars of the community, recognized not only for mechanical genius and miraculous sight-restoring tech, but for their warmth and leadership. News from off-world ships spoke of unrest in Zenith space. A schism was forming, with factions challenging the Empire's centuries-old doctrine of perfection. Some demanded stricter genetic standards, while younger generations called for reform. Occasional conflicts flared, painting the Empire as a once unified giant now splintering from within. Captain Rourke called a meeting in the newly built council hall, a grander structure replacing the rickety mess hall. Settlers and visitors gathered, listening intently to a trader's report about Zenith upheaval. Saris and Ethan stood among the crowd, concern growing as they heard of civil disputes, planetary unrest, and calls for radical purges of impurities. After the meeting, the crowd murmured anxiously. Some believed the Zenith's internal chaos might spare Helios Minor. Others feared an even harsher crackdown from a desperate empire. Saris remained thoughtful. Ethan sensed her turmoil. "You're thinking about going back, aren't you?" he asked quietly. She exhaled. "Part of me wonders if I can help. If they're at a crossroads, maybe my story could change minds. Spare others my suffering." He frowned in concern. They exiled you. They nearly took you back by force. You owe them nothing. Her voice trembled. True, but they're still my people. If there's a chance I could prevent more pain, shouldn't I try? He studied her face, then squeezed her hand. I'll stand by you. But we need a plan. We can't just walk into Zenith space. Word of Saris's possible trip spread, drawing mixed reactions. Some colonists felt she belonged here, safe. Others believed she could shift an empire's fate. Captain Rourke remained pragmatic. If you go, you'll need a ship, crew, and a clear mission. Then a multi-species trader consortium arrived, hoping to broker peace or at least open trade with certain Zenith factions. They invited Saris along, believing her story might open doors. Ethan was also invited, given his engineering prowess and role in her neural breakthroughs. Late one night, as Saris and Ethan lay in their simple bunk, she whispered, I'm scared but also drawn to the chance of helping my people. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. I'm with you, but promise we'll come back. Helios Minor is our home now. Tears gathered in her eyes. I promise. Preparations began. Rourke provided a small security detail. Ethan assisted with the freighter's stealth systems. Supplies were packed. The evening before departure, the colony held a farewell feast under the stars. Music and laughter rang through the desert air. Saris and Ethan danced, swaying to the beat of improvised drums. She caught glimpses of firelight, the outlines of smiling faces. This place, once so desolate, had become her sanctuary. At dawn, they boarded the consortium freighter, Dawnseeker. Captain Rourke and many colonists gathered to see them off. As the engines roared, Saris felt a surge of emotion. She was leaving home once more, but this time by choice, hoping to bring light to an empire drowning in darkness. Together with Ethan, she resolved to face whatever lay ahead among the stars. The Dawnseeker traversed hyperspace steadily, each jump bringing Saris and Ethan closer to Zenith territory. The crew was a diverse mix of traders, mercenaries, and diplomats, united by the belief that peace and commerce could prevail even where hostility reigned. Saris and Ethan spent long hours perfecting her neural interface, ensuring she could present herself with poise before any Zenith delegation. Each successful test reminded her she had turned a perceived flaw into a source of strength. Eventually, they emerged near an uninhabited system on the Empire's fringe. The tension aboard was palpable. Would the Zenith meet them peacefully or attack? Their answer came swiftly. A flotilla of Zenith vessels surrounded the Dawnseeker, silent and imposing. A calm but stern voice crackled over comms. This is Commander Alaris of the Zenith Vanguard. State your purpose or leave. Sothric, the consortium's reptilian diplomat, replied. We seek negotiation, bearing an envoy, Saris, once exiled by your empire, who now wishes to speak on behalf of those you call flawed. A long silence followed. Saris clutched Ethan's hand, heart pounding. Then came the measured response. Very well. Prepare for escort to a secure station. Any deception will be met with force. Relief swept the Dawnseeker's crew. They were guided to a colossal orbital station circling a green gas giant. After docking, Saris, Ethan, and the diplomats disembarked into pristine corridors lined with Zenith guards, weapons ever ready. Envoy Teriel, cloaked in silver, greeted them. We have heard rumors of discord in our empire, and of an exiled woman who defied all expectation, Teriel said. You will appear before a council of multiple factions. Saris's nerves flared, but Ethan's supportive touch steadied her. Thank you, she said quietly. I hope to show that imperfection can be a strength. Teriel led them to a grand chamber of curved walls and shimmering panels. Zenith counselors sat behind a half-circle table, wearing silver and gold robes, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Murmurs spread as Saris and Ethan approached. Envoy Teriel introduced them, then gestured for Saris to speak. Drawing a breath, she recounted her upbringing, the rejection of her blindness, exile, and how her life changed on Helios Minor. She spoke of the neural device Ethan helped develop, revealing how her so-called flaw led to innovation. Through her augmented vision, she saw some counselors lean forward, intrigued. Others exchanged skeptical glances. A barrage of questions followed. One traditionalist snapped, "Why celebrate weakness? Our empire was built on genetic purity." Saris held her ground, voice unwavering. By discarding those deemed flawed, you lose the very potential that diversity creates. My blindness drove me to discover new technology. Imperfection can spark progress. A reformist spoke more gently. You claim the humans aided you, that you found acceptance with them. Have we truly lost our compassion? Saris nodded. Compassion exists among Zenith, but fear of imperfection buries it. I ask only that you see every life as valuable. Debate ensued. Traditionalists clung to perfection. Reformists argued the empire was fracturing under intolerance. Envoy Teriel struggled to maintain order. Eventually, one high-ranking official demanded evidence of her claims. Ethan stepped forward, activating a holographic display of Saris's brain activity, showing how the neural interface translated signals into sight. Council members watched, fascinated by the possibility of an augment that could revolutionize treatments. Even the staunchest conservatives seemed momentarily intrigued. Seizing the moment, Saris explained, had I not been blind or exiled, this discovery might never have happened. Do you see the irony? Your system's flaw catalyzed a breakthrough. The chamber erupted in intense debate. Hours passed as each faction adjourned, deliberated, and reconvened. Finally, in the station's artificial night, Envoy Teriel announced, "We have reached a tentative accord. We will commission a study of this neural interface and propose guidelines regarding those deemed defective. Change will not come instantly, but your testimony has opened our eyes." A traditionalist glared, while a reformist nodded in triumph. Saris and Ethan exchanged hopeful smiles. This was not a sweeping victory, but it was a beginning, a hint that Zenith's rigid creed could bend. Teriel looked at Saris. Will you return to assist these reforms, or remain in exile? Ethan's hand tightened on hers. Saris answered calmly, I will help in whatever ways I can. But my home is now Helios Minor, with the people who accepted me. Teriel bowed politely. We respect your choice. Our commission will maintain contact. And so the council session concluded, sealed with careful handshakes rather than gunfire. Saris felt a tremendous weight lift. She had come back to the empire that had cast her out, and she had managed to spark a shift. However small, it mattered. They departed the station, the Dawnseeker's crew relieved at this peaceful outcome. The journey back was filled with cautious celebration, the tension of the mission ebbing away. Saris and Ethan often retreated to the observation deck, watching hyperspace swirl around them, reflecting on the day's triumph. When they touched down at Helios Minor, the colony erupted in cheers. Captain Rourke greeted them with a wry smile. So, you made friends with the Zenith? Ethan laughed. Friends might be pushing it, but they're talking reforms. Saris nodded, scanning the crowd with her augmented sight. Silhouettes of neighbors and friends, bright under the desert sun, filled her vision. She recalled how she'd arrived alone and unwanted. Now she returned triumphant, no longer exiled in spirit. In the days that followed, rumors spread that the Zenith Council had indeed begun rethinking exile policies. A few exiles even showed up at Helios Minor, seeking refuge in the neural technology Saris and Ethan refined. Saris welcomed them, sharing her experiences, determined to ensure no one else would be abandoned for being different. And so, in a corner of a once desolate world, a new legacy began. An unlikely alliance, shaped by tolerance and innovation, took root. At its heart stood Saris and Ethan. She, the once blind alien cast out by her own kind, and he, the human engineer who had given her sight and love. Bound by trust forged in adversity, they saw firsthand that imperfection could be the wellspring of profound strength. Every day, they looked around at the growing settlement, aware that life remained imperfect. New challenges would arise, new battles might loom. Yet, in each other, they found the resolve to face it all, secure in the knowledge that acceptance and hope shine brightest in places once deemed barren. And so their story, once defined by exile, closed on a joyous chapter of belonging, purpose, and a love that transcended the very boundaries that had once kept them apart.